Hello, Story Seekers. I'm Ben.
I'm Nico, and you're listening to The Tiny Bookcase.
Our guest for this episode joins us from London and is a horror and dark fiction writer who enjoys lifting weights, cooking, and kung fu.
He's the mind behind books such as But Worse Will Come, Forfeit Tissue, and Downwind Alice. We would like to warmly welcome CC Adams.
Hello, CC.
Cool. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Oh, it's lovely to have you. Of all the martial arts, CC, what led you to Kung Fu?
I mean, the reason why I got into martial arts to begin with was just from all my time lifting weights and thankfully how much muscle back then I had put on from lifting weights. And I wanted to be fit and flexible enough to carry the extra mass. So I figured, why not take up a martial art? And then it's like shopping for a shirt or a pair of shoes or a car or whatever. You want to find something that fits you. So I figured, why don't I start with something where you get to use your hands and feet, something which is good for attack and defense and all around speed, flexibility, agility, stamina. And then I decided, why not start with Kung Fu? Little did I realize that even with Kung Fu, there are so many variations and styles, but that's where the basic idea came from. Start with something as quote unquote famous or well known as Kung Fu. And it just so happened that Kung Fu was the best fit.
Have you got a favoured stance?
Yeah.
You're a tiger? You're a mantis?
I mean, the style of Kung Fu that, and I've not been in class for a while, which is a whole other story, is what they call Seal Lung, which is a derivation of Jeet Kune Do. Seal Lung means a little dragon after Bruce Lee. So, yeah.
I was going to say, Jeet Kune Do was Bruce Lee's one, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, it's probably time we roll on with the stories. So the prompt for this week is delightful, and that is actually drawn from the story that CC is going to read for us, which is from an anthology of his. So Nico's going to be going first, and the prompt is delightful. So, delight us, Nico.
Delightful. Angelica Slump was an ordinary girl. Her cheeks, they were rosy, her hair, it did curl. She had 10 little toes, on the end of her feet was compiled of bones and of skin and of meat. Yes, Angelica Slump was as all girls should be, in gingham and pigtails, delightfully twee. But only the surface of Slump was a treasure, for in being a git, she took great heaps of pleasure. Angelica Slump, so sweet, so delightful, a ruse, a charade, her behaviour is frightful. On the morning of Monday, she walked home from the shop. On the way, she espied a man who'd had to stop. He rummaged his pockets, perhaps searching for sweets. Angelica would make the most of those treats. With a heave and a grunt, she launched one single can, and it thonked off the noggin of the innocent man. He clutched at his head, and a moaning he made, leant against the low wall, and his legs out were splayed. Angelica Slump, so sweet, so delightful, a hell of an arm, she's surprisingly mindful. Where's the sweets? She demanded of the injured old fellow. Give me all that you've got, she could be heard to bellow. I haven't got sweets, please don't hurt me, he cried. But she looked at his face, and she knew he had lied. He's got humbugs or Werthers or a whole jelly snake. I know a sweet carrier, make no mistake. In his pocket she rummaged, near the bits we don't mention, and soon she withdrew, holding on to his pension. Angelica Slump, so sweet, so delightful. She knew something was there, she's so very insightful. This is better than sweets, she cried out in alarm. Who wants a chicken when you can buy the whole farm? Thanks for the cash, Grandad. I'm back to the shop for chocolate and crisps and some bottles of pop. You horrible creature, the old man called at her back. I'll have you sorted for this wicked attack. But Angelica Slump simply skipped on her way, as blood dripped on the pavement from the head she'd near staved. Angelica Slump, so sweet, so delightful, her finances flying as high as a kiteful. Hello again, little girl, said the shopkeep, surprised, the wide look of fear alight in his eyes. Shut your gob, said the girl, withdrawing the cash. You'll fetch me some goodies as quick as a flash. I want big bars of chocolate and a tub of ice cream, a bag of soft gummies and a pink magazine. And if I don't get them, I'll not only scream, but in my bag I've got 3 more tins of beans. Angelica Slump, so sweet, so delightful. Best do what she says, she can get pretty spiteful. He gathered up produce as quick as a cat, scurry to, scurry fro like a gathering rat, till he filled up a bag with every kind of treat, and Angelica smacked her lips ready to eat. I shan't give you the money, that I have decided. The shopkeep deflated, but couldn't deny it. I'm going now, but you should think yourself lucky, or you're my next victim and you'll come unstucky. Angelica Slump, so sweet, so delightful. On a bit of a spree now, she'll have to take flightful. As she took to the street fully laden with prizes, she encountered one of life's tricky surprises. The geezer she'd conked on the head with the tin was apparently busily dobbing her in. A bobby, adorned in a helmet and cape, was noting notes ready to stop her escape. That silly old git, she'd teach him to grass. A second tin flew, and for him pavement met arse. Angelica Slump, so sweet, so delightful. The policeman was taking her age and her height full. Oi! Shouted the policeman and started to run. Angelica wondered if he had a gun, or maybe a truncheon, or even a sword. Would he grab her and hand her in for a reward? Well, not on your Nelly, she still had some beans. She'd stand her ground and try to end the scene. Angelica Slump, so sweet, so delightful. We hope that the copper is ready to fight full. Tin 1 went a-flying, but helmet it met. She hadn't slowed down the bobby just yet. Tin 2 made its impact with glorious splat, and claret came pouring from under the hat. But the copper was on her, his nose rightly broken, and as he seized her, some words they were spoken. You're Nick me old beauty, in the name of our nation. Come quietly, I'm taking you to the station. Angelica Slump, so sweet, so delightful. Looks like old Slump's in a deep sea of shiteful. But she kicked and she screamed as she battled the rozzer. You can't take me, pigs, I'm a champion tosser. It won't just be beans, I'll start throwing you too. And with a great roaring grunt, that she decided to do. She lifted the policeman as high as she could, a powerful throw, and it didn't sound good. A big crunch when he landed, an unholy noise. A siren went calling, and here come the boys. Angelica Slump, so sweet, so delightful. Angelica, things are getting rather out of hand here, and she started to run, but while strong, she was slow. So as coppers caught up, she had another go. One was thrown left, the next was thrown right, and they ran and she threw all the way through the night. So now it's Tuesday. The beans have been cast. Going to the shop was a thing of the past. She had run till there's nowhere to run anymore, but the policeman in rear, at her front was the shore. Angelica Slump, so sweet, so delightful. Angelica, you can't even bloody swim. Maybe you should. You'll not take me alive! A defiant scream heard, and she jumped in the ocean without one more word. And they saw things get thrown at her path of ingress. A starfish went up, then a shark. What a mess! And they lost her quite soon. No more bubbles they saw, as the police stood, their mouths open in awe. We don't know where she is now, the young lady Slump. In truth, we had never thought that she would jump. Angelica Slump, so sweet, so delightful. I think she might have drowned.
Oh man, that hard ending onto the no rhyme.
Priceless. Priceless.
So funny.
Love it. Love it. Seriously.
Oh,
Glad you enjoyed
God.
it,
Love it.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. What do you reckon? Yeah, what do you reckon, CC? Any
Very
pointers?
nice. Yeah. Priceless. I love it. It was just brilliant. And the flow and yeah. Well, whatever I had in mind, what the story might have been, I was not expecting that. But yes,
Yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, there was definitely a hint of as I was writing it, I realised it was very sort of Roald Dahl's revolting rhymes.
Mm-hmm.
And I love poems like that get really unhinged, and people do things like run all night throwing policemen all over the place. I think that's such a lovely thing that you can't get away with quite so easily in normal prose, but in poetry you can just say absolutely balmy shit. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and it's obviously that was the 11 that you got it to, but you built it carefully and well. Like it didn't start there, did it? You know, it started with about like a 4 or a 5, intensity. Went up a little bit when she mugged that pensioner straight away, and then continued. The absolutely horrific rhymes on Delightful with kiteful, flightful, heightful. Like the first one, I wrinkled my brow, but then on the second one, I was like, "Oh, okay, he's just gone. He's just gone for it." I love it.
Yeah,
I loved it. It
he's
was really
just
free
gone
flowing.
with it.
Knowing what I know about your creative process, I'm willing to bet that came out in one, like 15-minute burst. Did that come out fully formed?
It was about 25 minutes, yeah.
Yeah.
And no, I think I made one edit
Very nice.
Yeah.
because there was a line that had the wrong amount of beats to it. But it's a strange form of poetry where if you didn't know what rhythm I intended, you'd read it and think, "What the? These lines are the wrong length." But it's very like how Pam Ayres writes, where some words are just meant for the accent or the speech pattern of the writer, so they only really work if the right person reads it. If you'd read it, Ben, you would have got really annoyed at me quite quickly, I think.
Yeah, almost certainly. It's a real skill. It's something that my brain just does not work like that, and I have so much respect for you to be able to just do that. And it comes out, and it's so funny, and it's so well organized, and like it did, peak and trough. It did build. And also you were doing stuff with the narration as well. Like it became more of like a gonzo narrator losing control of his story. As we got further in, it was interesting and lovely and funny and delightful. Nice work.
Thank you. I think you're right. It goes to mugging a pensioner quite quick. It could be worth putting something slightly naughty at the beginning before hitting an old man with a tin of beans and robbing him for his
that was not the intention of that feedback. Actually, I think that's a very good place for the start, considering where it ends, because you get all the way to like a Willy Wonka going into the Tunnel of Terror level of madness. So I think it's for that to be the start, sort of sets the it's the starting gun, isn't it? And then she's off. Angelica's slump. Whew. Absolutely horrible name. The delivery on I haven't got any sweets was the first time that I properly chuckled, and I didn't really stop chuckling. So, very nice work. Very nice.
Thank you ever so much. I hope you've got something a bit less mad to give us, CC, because it is your turn to read a story.
Well, it all depends on how you define mad.
Does anyone throw a policeman?
No, I can honestly say that no policemen were harmed in the making of this story.
Well, when you're ready, CC.
Hard plastic of the armrest dug into Raymond's side, waking him as the train came to an abrupt halt. He straightened up in his seat and blinked, his eyes feeling rougher than ever. A glance at the opposite window revealed the blackness of the tunnel wall, a length of yellow cable stapled along it. A glance at the dot matrix screen above the seats opposite told him that on the next station being South Wimbledon, he had not only missed his stop several stations ago, but that he was also near the end of the line. He fished his mobile phone out of his pocket and exhaled in weak exasperation when he saw the time. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and stifled a yawn. Goosebumps broke out across his neck and arms, and he reached in his rucksack for his sweatshirt, shrugging it on. He scanned the carriage. Fewer people sat in the carriage now, aside from the paunchy man reading a magazine. The only other occupant in the carriage was a short woman with black curly hair, wholly engrossed in a book. Raymond yawned again, scowling inside as the buzz on the overhead speaker heralded the driver's apologetic tone for the signal problems and flimsy assurance that the train would be on the move as soon as they got the all clear. The other passengers looked unimpressed, as did those visible in the next carriage through the window in the opposite doorway. He slumped back in his seat, resting his head in the corner of the window. Time passed, minutes ticking by with excruciating slowness. He opened his eyes briefly. Overhead, the dot matrix board continued to scroll the same useless message. At this rate, you'll be wide awake when you get home. Raymond slid a sideways look at the carriage, noting the paunchy man twisted in his seat, facing him. The man clapped his hands on his knees before getting up, his mouth a thin, tight line. With the air of a boss ready to give a tongue lashing to an underling, the man walked over to Raymond and sat in the chair diagonally opposite. I feel for you. You look like you're long past due for your bed. Eyes half-lidded, Raymond raised his eyebrows. That man smiled without humor. Sorry, I guess that's stating the obvious. You could say I'm going a little stir-crazy in here. Raymond managed a brief smile. It's understandable. The man's features eased into a look of bemused resignation, the smile in his lips slight, mirth showing in his eyes. Yes, but I really don't want to sound like a twat. Both men looked at each other, now alert. Raymond lifted his head. The man gave a self-deprecating shrug. Aha, the man said, forefinger held up like a starter pistol. There's some energy left in this young buck yet. He got to his feet, leaning on his knee with one hand, his other arm outstretched to Raymond. I'm Tobias. Raymond, he said, grasping the man's hand in a brief shake, surprised at how fleshy it was. Oh, that's a strong grip you've got. I'm guessing by the size of you that you work out, he said, seating himself and hitching up his trouser legs as he did so. The lights dimmed briefly and he glanced up. Once or twice, Raymond said, shrugging. Once or twice. Such a modest man. How much food do you eat, if you don't mind me asking? 5 meals a day. If the answer surprised Tobias, it didn't show. Instead, his brow furrowed, bringing creases to the corners of his eyes and a smile that looked a shade too sly to be innocent. You wouldn't have any food in that rucksack there, would you? Raymond shook his head. Sorry. Damn. Bad enough I missed dinner. Now I can feel my stomach asking my throat if it's been cut. You ever get that feeling where you're so empty that you start to feel full? Lips curving in a wry smile, Raymond slanted an eye roll. Oh yeah. Not planning on letting that happen anytime soon. Tobias scoffed. You might have to. Certainly doesn't look like they're going to let us get out of here anytime soon. You might have to take resort to drastic measures, maybe. Like what? Like eating each other.
Whoa.
That's it.
Cannibals, man. It's so like there's just something inherently creepy about them. Obviously, like that's a bit of a truism, isn't it? But yeah, you built him really well. This Tobias, this big guy that he connects with because he knows that he must
soft hands.
With his soft hands, but like the fact that he like works out a lot, so he knows he needs to eat a lot. Ah, very good. I really liked how you conjured the scene immediately with the plastic wedged into the side, and then compounded it with that like missed stop anxiety fear thing. So just immediately you put the audience straight inside Raymond's head, and then describe really quite beautifully being on the underground, and then have that turn really dark really quickly. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. Thank you.
I wrote down right at the top that the yellow cable in the dark tunnel is such a London image.
It is.
Like, I've looked at that so many times on the underground, and I was there immediately there. Yeah. That's a great observation because it'd be easy to talk about the ugly fabric, that blue fabric with the weird pill shapes on it.
Yeah,
they have on all the chairs. But no, that looking at those cables, I'm thinking, God, they always look filthy and straight in. I also,
but you see these things so often that it becomes background. But what I wanted to do for not only this story but the collection that it sits in is to give so much of that background detail, that nuanced detail, that it all helps bring the story to life. That if you've even been on the underground just once, you get a sense of how it is. Oh yeah, I've seen that, or I've seen something like it. So it's easier for you to place yourself in the scene that's being set.
Do you want to tell us a bit more about the anthology?
Oh yeah.
What's the anthology that it's a part of?
Yeah. This is one story in a collection I've written, which is called Misery and Other Lines. For those of us who've been in London long enough, many years ago, maybe about I'd guess say maybe 30 years, the Northern Line, which if memory serves, is the oldest line on the network. Do keep me honest here. But the Northern Line used to be known as the Misery Line. The idea being that there were so many delays and so many faults and things were old and clunky and all the rest of it. So, given that this collection is not only set in and around London Underground, but it's also set in and around London Underground on Halloween about 10 years ago. I think I said it in 2015. So it is a play on words as much as anything else. The title, Misery and Other Lines.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Speaking of other lines, I've got to bring up the being so hungry that your stomach asks your throat if it's been cut. That's a hell of a fucking line, man. I was a big fan of that.
Thank you.
Also, I have to say, it might just be because I lived in and around London for so long, but the most horror element of that story is someone you do not know starting a conversation with you on the underground.
Yeah, I wrote down that it was the creepy element really increased when he gets up and comes and sits over by you, being like,
God, yeah.
Just, no, what are you doing? Stay away from me, stranger.
You appear to not know the fucking rules of how this works. Do not talk to me.
We're all trying not to breathe in this air, so just don't talk any. Let's keep it. I also wrote down stomach asking the throat if it's been cut. I think that was a fantastic line, like a real. I feel like that was potentially the crowning jewel line of the story. Yeah, big time. Right,
good ending as well. Yeah, I'll give that last compliment of I did like the ending because it was that very sudden. Like there's so much possibility in there, but really there's only one possibility left. That's very cool for it to. Your brain will make that the worst case scenario. Someone's getting 8.
What I will say on that is, what I've read isn't the whole story. That's just an excerpt from somewhere in the middle. And again, that's just one story in a collection of, I think I'd written 14 stories, but given also that it's based in and around London Underground, the same way that there are lines on London Underground that intersect, so it is in the collection that there are stories that intersect. So characters you see in one story, not only do they appear in another story, but if you've seen Pulp Fiction, the book is also told like that in terms of where the narratives land, in what order, what stories intersect.
Very cool. Yeah, I think Pulp Fiction has got to be easily inside my top 5 of all time. So I think that sounds like the kind of collection for me, really.
But yeah, you sounded like you were rather eager and ready, Ben. So do you think you've got a delightful story for us?
I feel like I just want to match your energy, guys. Like you had such a bounce to your stories. It's been so good. But yeah, no, I'm happy to go.
Let's have it. I'm excited.
Cool. Go for it.
Delightful. I'm a collector, an antiquarian of sorts. And when did you purchase the item? A few days ago. A delightful piece. So I've been told. And who did you buy it from, please? From one of those river tinkers, an otter named Larkin. So, is it true? What happened up at the embassy? It must be difficult to discover the provenance of something that's been blown to smithereens. The insect man loomed forwards, and grisly excitement shone brightly in his compound eyes. I'm not at liberty to discuss an ongoing investigation. You've been very helpful. Thank you for your time. The necklace had been through a dozen hands before it reached the embassy, and Mole had spoken to all of them in that last day. He put on his spectacles and flipped open his notebook as he rode the tram down to the river. His scrawled notes from each interview all sang the same tune. Seller eager to make a fortune from a rare piece. Buyer willing to pay large sum, safe in the knowledge they could sell it on to the city's wealthy elite for a profit. On and on, until it reached the rarefied air of the human embassy, then boom. Mole, his ample rump spilling over the recycled plastic seats of the tram, squinted at his writing and then circled the word delightful in the insect antiquarian statement. He circled it again in the previous statement, and again where it appeared in all the others. The tram stopped at a crossroads to allow other ramshackle vehicles past, and Mole looked up to see that someone had daubed "Humans Out" in all capital letters on the side of an abandoned building. A gang of street rats smoked grass and lounged below it like they were posing for an edgy magazine cover. Delightful, Mole muttered to himself as the tram lurched forwards again. The docks were filled with the tinker barges that made the trip upriver to collect from the humans. Their nets crossed the river and caught all that would otherwise pollute it. The smell would have been atrocious to most of his fellow detectives, but Mole couldn't smell much besides his investigation going sour, that is. The otter man was nearly 5.5 feet tall and had the long legs and triangular build of a gifted swimmer. Larkin massaged his muzzle and flicked at his whiskers while he listened to Mole's questions. "Yeah, I sold it to the bug. Gave me a good price for it too." "And where did you get it?" "Came up in one of my nets, didn't it? Upriver. Most of what we get is proper tat, stuff the humans chuck away that we can sell to someone. But right away, I spotted the twinkle on it and thought to myself, Larkin, that's a delightful find." The muscular otter jerked a thumb over his shoulder and began to wind up his mooring rope. "Are you going upriver now?" "Third of my 4 trips today." "Can you take me?" Mole didn't like the river. He felt blind without the rhythms of the city under his feet. Instead, the strong currents bobbed the barge deck erratically and caused him to totter about. Eventually, Larkin impolitely told him to sit near the prow and not touch anything. It gave Mole time to think. The necklace had redecorated the ambassador's dining room during a celebratory ball. Mole had never met her before and didn't like humans much, but it's difficult to look at someone who has died a violent death and feel nothing. The guests had told him they'd been there to celebrate the agreement in principle of proper trade deals between the creature folk and the humans. Then, just after her speech, the new necklace had started fizzing and hissing before detonating. Just enough time to panic. Whoever did it wanted her to know she was dying. Bombstones weren't rare, but he'd never heard anyone claim they were delightful before. What could it be? A glamour? Some sort of curse? "Here we are," said Larkin, and Mole noticed the barge was moored to a net post and had come to a stop. "This is where I found it." Mole looked at the submerged net and the rotting poles holding it in place, then blinked and looked out over the nearby bank. "What's that?" he asked, taking off his glasses to clean them. For a moment, the world diminished into broad daubs of lustreless colour. "Big house. This far upriver is human land." "And they let you net here, do they?" "Easier than paying a bin man to come to their nice fancy house," shrugged the otter. "Let me out on their bank, would you? I'll catch you on your next trip for a return ride." Mole walked along the wide white path that curved through the palatial grounds towards the house. He found the faint crunch of chalky stone under his feet oddly disquieting. Everywhere around him, nature had been tamed. The woods had been coppiced. The wide land by the river bore mowed stripes of useless grass, and there wasn't an animal in sight. The house grew to loom over him as he approached. Huge pillars of purple-veined marble supported a triangular high lintel which bore a relief of violent hunting scenes. Its face was studded with windows like big glass eyes, and tall stone steps climbed into the mouth of the massive double doors that served as the main entrance. Mole pulled on the doorbell and waited. He adjusted his long coat so that his badge was more visible and straightened the cable-knit jumper under it so he might feel slightly less shabby, slightly less animal. A large butler with a scarred face opened the door and scowled down at him. "Animals go round the back." He went to shut the door again, but Mole pushed past him. "Badges go through the front. Is your master at home?" The butler purpled at his impudence, and Mole saw the man pluck a shillelagh, as scarred as he was, from a metal umbrella stand. "Mr. Policeman, where?" a voice cut in from above them. It was clipped and cold, as though every syllable was a snapped-off piece of ice to be spat out. Mole turned to look up and saw a tall human descending the grand staircase. "Where does your jurisdiction end?" "No, Fergus, put the stick down." Mole's hairs prickled at the thought of getting his head stoved in from behind. "City limits," Mole replied. "Good. Now we have that established, what do you want?" The human peered down his long nose at Mole, who had to remind himself that he was allowed to breathe. "Know anything about necklaces?" "I do, yes. I am an artisan of some renown. Spell-woven jewellery is all the rage in civilized society. I make delightful pieces that call to their rightful owner, so that they might never be lost." "Out of bombstone?" The icy composure of the human cracked into a cruel smile. "Why ever would I do that?" "You don't seem to like animals much. Perhaps, so I don't know, to hinder diplomacy between the creature folk and the humans?" It did not help Mole to know he was right, to know that he had his man. There was nothing he could do to a human outside of the city. The spellweaver's smile broadened and exposed his shining white teeth, which nestled in his pink gums. "Fergus, the inspector is leaving now." After his unceremonious ejection, after his sullen river ride home, after his report was submitted, Mole took a personal day, citing that he needed to blow off some steam and get back to his roots. He returned the next day to a summons from the chief inspector. The bear man, who had made his name cracking street rat heads and dispensing justice with an iron claw, looked furious. "Damn it, Mole! Why'd you have to stick that nose of yours into human affairs?" "Sir," replied Mole, nodding his deference to the enormous, bristling shape of his superior, "I've had a report of your misconduct on the assassination investigation. As if tensions weren't high enough right now between us and them. They claim you defaced their property. Did you dig up someone's fucking garden?" "Their lawn, sir." "They're claiming it's police harassment and that your digging spells out a word which will mar their land for years. They don't say what word. Mind telling me?" "Of course, sir," smirked Mole. "It said, delightful."
That was great, man.
Thank you.
You got a lot of world building in there. Really, really well.
I like how Mole behavior is put down as defacing human property. As what's the word I look for? As
Yeah.
perhaps an arrestable offence. Yeah, that's very clever.
Oh, thank
Very
you.
nice.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Yeah. Soon, when you said about him being an otter at the beginning, I was like, does he mean like a normal size otter or an otter man? And then as soon as it was an insect man, I was like, okay, fuck it, I'm in. I don't care. I just want to know everything about this world that Ben's created.
You know, I'm glad you said that because the first time I heard it, I thought otter, and then insect, and I thought, what now? And then when I heard the distinction about going upriver or downriver to the human land, I thought, now I have the context I need. No, that's very nice. That's very
The world
nice.
building stuff, the humans out graffiti and like how ramshackle their vehicles were. Like this is clearly a society that's growing out of the sort of waste of humans. It's just very cool. Oh, I wrote down a line. When you talked about the necklace having redecorated the room, that's a killer line. Literally a killer line.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that paints such a horrible, visceral picture of what happened to the ambassador. That was nice.
Yeah.
It was full of lovely little bits of description like that, man. They're little sort of sparkling, let's call them bombstones of description Just it sang to me. I really liked like that kind of police procedural thing of him. He's figured it out, but he can't do anything about it, and taking his petty vengeance, and just a nice story. We talk a lot about stories that don't fit quite into the word count, and maybe they needed more. This was exactly the right size for this story. You could do loads in this world, but this little bite, perfect mouthful.
Definitely.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. No, I had a lot of fun with this one. I worked backwards from the concept of the device, basically, which I don't normally do. I normally sort of go for the emotion and like what I'm trying to get across in the piece. But the police procedural thing came later.
Yeah.
Because I liked the idea of delightful being an activation word of some sort, and then so this idea of it being like
Okay.
that it's something that's enchanted, which means that whoever looks at it just says that it's delightful. Like that's what they think it is, doesn't it? So it has like a glamour or something. And I was like, so why would that? Why is that a story? How is that a story? Oh, what if it's a bomb? And so it's sort of built into this idea that like it's almost like a sniper's bullet that you can just drop, and then eventually, like like Gollum with the ring, eventually it'll get picked up, and then it will start its journey to its target.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it, and then I just like, oh yeah, may as well make it a police procedural thing.
They also just taking the moment to describe the otter man as having the like human otter physique was it's very silly and very fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of leaving it to people like whether it's just like the heads are like that or whether like the whole bodies are a bit odd. But I definitely had it in mind that they're creature folk, so they are sort of humanoids that are like in that vein. So like the insect man and the otter man and the mole man and the bear man, they're still men, but just with some differences.
They have those animal sensibilities.
Oh man!
Even things like description of the boss as a bear of a man. Yeah, some very nice touches in there. Very nice.
Anything you'd change? Anything you'd knock off? Anything that didn't work?
I don't think I would change anything, but I agree with Nico in this one. As an opening salvo to this particular mythos, this particular world that I like, but I'd be intrigued to see more of it and more about these characters. Yes, I know there are stories like Wind in the Willows, but to have something which is so almost wry in terms of a sense of the thing about defacing a human lawn, which yes, we know this is the kind of thing that moles will do, but to have it seen as an arrestable offence, as though they are, what's the word I look for? Anthropom.
Yes.
Animals made human. I can't remember exactly how to pronounce the word.
Yeah.
But yes, that word.
No, that. Thank you.
That's
I wasn't sure.
Cool concept. Definitely.
I was aware that was like a joke. It's almost like a joke ending, isn't it? That the mole digs up his garden. But I don't know. I tried to make it land, so we'll see.
But I mean, it's in his nature. That's why it works. I feel like I want a whole story about street rats because they're like a subculture within. Like animals are under the humans, and then the rats are under the animals, and I kind of feel bad for them because they're all we see them do in the story is smoke some pot, and then we find out that this bear's built his whole career on like stoving their heads in. These poor rats, what have they done?
But they were cool though. Like the street rats were cool. Like they had, they've got their own style. Like it's a bit grungy. It's a bit, metalhead. But yeah. It's
such a little Fonzie-looking street rats with mohawks,
red eyes and chuckling to each other. Oh, fantastic! Well,
cheese.
It's always interesting where there are links and stuff, isn't there? So obviously we have the transport system link between yours and mine, CC.
Yeah.
But then there was also some like lexical field stuff that went on. We Nico, you and I both talked about having heads stoved in.
Yes, we did.
I don't know how we got there from Delightful, really, but I think
And
that's
both both had police.
violent
Such
people. Yeah, just naturally
violent
violent.
people.
Delightfully violent.
Yes, coppers. Yeah, the whole thing. Oh, it's always interesting, isn't it? I so different, all three of them, and I had a fantastic time listening to both of yours. So thank you for that.
A marvelous trifecta,
Same,
I think.
definitely.
So before we bring this episode of the stories to a close, Cece, do you mind telling people where they can, what they should buy of yours and where they should find you online and that sort of thing?
Yeah. So in terms of my website, that is www.ccadams.com. I can also be found on Facebook and Twitter/X for those who are still there at Mr. Adams Writes. And in terms of all the works that I've written, which ones I am particularly proud of, Misery and Other Lines, which is a collection based in and around London Underground on Halloween night some 10 years ago. There is But Worse Will Come, which is probably my favorite, if you like, single story work to date. And Downwind Alice, which was also a lot of fun to write. So, but if I was to say start anywhere, I would probably say Misery and Other Lines, simply because London features very heavily as a character, as I'd like to think it does with all my work. But if you want an introduction to my London, how London actually is, and the horror sensibility that I bring to my work in terms of how the horrific, the supernatural, the insidious looks in an everyday environment, I would say start with Misery and Other Lines.
Well, it's been an absolute joy talking to you, but we'll draw this one to a close, and everyone should tune in next week to listen to the interview where we're going to dig into some of the things we've spoken about a bit more.
We'll see you there.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Tiny Bookcase.
Remember to subscribe, otherwise you're going to miss out on the future fun.
Also, tell a friend. If you like this episode, link them to it.
We'd be tremendously grateful. You can follow us on Twitter at BookcaseTiny, Facebook at The Tiny Bookcase, and Instagram at BookcaseTiny for updates. Speaking of supporting the podcast, well, magic can only take one so far. The Tiny Bookcase is supported by the generosity of its patrons. Those kind souls have really kept my belly full the last year. Let's cast a spell for them, shall we? For rich ginger tones on their scalp, let us cast the Orangi Hedondo spell for Scott Byrne. And for general fabulousness, why not the Ooh La La, How's Your Mother spell on Matthew McLaren?
How do you come up with that shit, man?